Hello world, this is What's Up 290, and welcome to the third episode of Urban Legends of Entertainment. We're going to be talking about one of the more infamous urban legends out there. That's right, today's video we're going to be talking about Polybius. Now if you don't know what Polybius is, that's excusable, but I might suggest looking it up before we start. The story goes that in the year 1981, a mysterious arcade game called Polybius was released in Portland, Oregon. The game was incredibly addicting to the point of where anyone who played it supposedly had immense physical struggle to stop playing the game, and large crowds would form around all of the arcade cabinets, and even in some areas, fist fights would break out over who got to play the game next. People who played the game supposedly started having horrific side effects, like having nightmares and also having strange visions of women and children crying while they were playing the game. Some versions of the legend also say that one person who played the game committed suicide, and another became an anti-video game activist. After about a month, all of the arcade cabinets supposedly disappeared and the game was never heard from again. Now what do I think of this urban legend? Well, I think it sounds like an internet creepypasta at its most. But with that said, let's take a look at where this urban legend could have possibly gotten its origins from. For one thing, this supposedly happened during the early 1980s. 1981 is the most common year cited. And back then, video games were an extremely new thing, and people may not have known that playing them can indeed cause seizures for people who have epilepsy. Games like Tempest and Pac-Man, which have flashing lights at times, were all the rage back then. And there were some reports of people who had epilepsy getting seizures from playing video games because it wasn't really known back then. It wasn't really determined back then that playing video games could have that effect. I think people could possibly be remembering the arcade cabinet Polyplay, which had a name similar to Polybius, and also was basically three or four different classic arcade games packed into one. But of course, this is an urban legend, and people have tried to assert that it's true. The person that supposedly helped create the game, Stephen Roach, left an online blog a couple years ago saying that he helped create the game, and also that it was indeed real. But his story has widely gone down as a hoax due to poor grammatical errors in the typing, and also other things that were proven factually incorrect. What he said was that they did release the game in Portland, Oregon, but quickly withdrew it because they found out that the graphics were dangerous for people who had sensitive epilepsy. The story that he posted online, though, has gone widely down as being purely unbelievable and obviously made up. But with that said, this urban legend may have originated from somewhere, as quite a few people have taken it quite seriously, and it's become one of the most infamous urban legends out there. Some people have even suggested that it could have been a part of Project MK Ultra, which was a government experiment during the 1940s through, I believe, 60s, where the U.S. government attempted mind controlling people using various chemicals and liquids. However, I think that this is a little bit far-fetched, not least because this was in 1981, and the technology that they could have used back then was extremely limited at best. Another thing that irks me about this story being true is how the arcade cabinets supposedly were mysteriously installed and removed a month later, with nobody seeing them being installed or removed, and also with the arcade owners not having any records of the game being in their arcade. So, from a technical standpoint, no. With the things I just said, no. I don't believe that this urban legend is true. Another big flaw I noticed is that supposedly a person became an anti-video game activist, and one person committed suicide. However, in all versions of the story that mention this, that these people will remain nameless and they've never been contacted. But it is kind of a but I guess you could say it is kind of a fun story nonetheless. And again, people have taken that to an all-new level, creating a fan-made PC and also a fan-made PlayStation 4 game. But where do I think this urban legend could have started? Well, there's several things. As I said, there was indeed an arcade cabinet called Polyplay back in the 80s, which was basically 4 classic arcade games packed into one. Another is that people may be remembering a game that then this is just a thought, that people may be remembering a game that caused photosynthesis-sensitive epilepsy, which leads us into another point. Some people have believe that Polybius could have been an early beta version of the classic arcade game Tempest, which has flashing lights and has caused people with photosensitive epilepsy to have issues. However, again, I believe that this has been proven untrue, as no one can even properly remember. No one who supposedly played it can even properly remember what type of game Polybius was, with it being a space shooter being the most cited thing. But one more thing before I sign off on this one. If you do plan to play either the PS4 or fan-made PC game, I would suggest not doing it for people that have sensitive epilepsy, because those two games do have large amounts of flashing lights, which can cause seizures. So be careful before you go starting a new urban legend. Thanks for listening. This is What's Up 290, and I'm signing off. Have a nice day.